I'll start again. Hi, I'm Tom Ryan. I'm here to discuss that what Phillips plans to build on their property is wildly inappropriate with the intended use of that land. Let's take a look at the picture up on this. Get the sucker to work. Here we go. That looks like where we're at right now. And this is the refinery as it is. And this thing here is the area for the new spur, proposed spur, whatever, and you could probably see it's a lot closer than this is here. Okay, I'm sorry. It's a lot closer, and that is where this buffer area here has been utilized to put the rail spur in. In the past, this buffer took a lot of the visual and noise and whatever away from us because we had some distance. Over the last 2 decades, San Luis Obispo County planners purposely engaged and licensed residential communities as desirable land use on the Nipomo Mesa. Planners consciously approved them with the expectations of beautiful views, golf courses, a hotel, a serene, quiet way of life. They also knew they were generating homes with above-average contributions to the county's property tax revenues. In response to the planners' blessing, so far more than 5,000 residents have already decided to live on the West Mesa, and the population continues to grow. Indeed, the county encourages expansion of existing communities and the construction of entirely new ones. But the invasion of a crude oil rail terminal would change all that. It would generate far greater intense activity. I want to stress intense activity than the benign delivery of crude by pipeline. It's been very quiet over the years. The pipeline doesn't make much noise under the ground. And now we're seeing a change from oil conveyed silently, safely, and unobtrusively, as it had been since about the 1950s, to an entirely new facility that is proposed that will create the arrival of 520 trains and departures every year. So you're going to have 520 trains in and out of the county. Now, the delivery of crude oil to a rail car terminal yard is an entirely new method of operating for the facility that we have had here since the 1950s. This change is not easy on us. Tankers would noisily uncouple and couple with locomotives and other machinery. They would be unloading 500 million gallons of dangerous and polluting crude. Plus, there would be numerous support vehicles always in constant motion. The newly released revised EIR states that between 1994 and 2011, when the Mesa's communities were built, the only discernible activity was within the coke yard. Coke is petroleum coke. It's something that's used to make steel. On the other hand, building an entire rail terminal and allowing the entry, exiting, and shifting of 520 trains per year will be a dramatic change in the level of activity the residents will be exposed to. Kevin, could you please? Thank you. Then there's the issue of the buffer. As you can see, this is a picture on one of the golf tees just on the fringe of the community. And the blue line is where the rail spur would be located. We're sure the county planners were counting on the open space buffer around the refinery to alleviate the close proximity between the industrial operation and the new communities. It just makes sense. But in the Phillips plan, the existing buffer distance would be depleted by over 57%. Phillips proposes to eliminate most of that gap. In its place, it would put intense operations that increase the health risks to citizens, along with noise, light, visual, and other polluting outcomes. And when we talk about land use, it's also extremely important to talk about CEQA, C-E-Q-A. That stands for the California Environmental Quality Act. This act requires that the EIR, the Environmental Impact Report, reveal any inconsistencies between the proposed project and San Luis Obispo County's existing land use policies. An appendix in the new EIR reveals many such land use inconsistencies. Now, for example, number one, the county's policy is that any project must preserve, protect, and improve our air quality. But the RER states the project's toxic air emissions would exceed the county's acceptable levels. This is inconsistent with land use policy. The county's policy is that agricultural, residential, and commercial and industrial uses must be developed in harmony. But the REIR states the project would result in significant health risk impacts to residents. This is inconsistent with land use policy. Number three, the county's policy is that energy, fossil fuel, and related facilities must be sited and operated in a manner to protect the public from hazard and significant environmental impacts. But the EIR states the project's activities could increase potential hazards. This is inconsistent with land use policy. Number four, the county's policy is that any project must not increase the threat to life, structures, and the environment, such as those caused by fire. But the EIR states that the project's plan to mitigate threats due to derailments is not feasible because the county would be preempted by federal law from implementing them. This is inconsistent with land use policy. Number five, the county's policy is that for a project such as this, there must be adequate equipment and personnel to meet the demands of firefighters. But the EIR states that the county currently lacks hazmat teams with adequate personnel and training for responding to fire and explosions from the Union Pacific Main Line. And that in any case, they'd be preempted from implementing the mitigation measures. The lack of personnel, training, and equipment, again, would be inconsistent with land use policy. Six, finally, the county's policy is that any project must not expose humans or the environment to hazardous substances. Yet the EIR states that the delivery of crude by rail is a significant risk, and crude is a hazardous substance. Again, the feds preempt the county from enforcing the proposed mitigations. So this also is inconsistent with land use policies. Kevin, we're up there, good. Ladies and gentlemen, it's obvious that what Phillips proposes would be incompatible with the residential land use across Highway 1 and inconsistent with the county land use policy. The intended use flies in the face of deliberately made plans and zoning decisions for this area. What Phillips proposes changes the entire game for Mesa residents and for the citizens of San Luis Obispo County. In effect, it pulls a rug out from what has originally been intended by our county planners. We must all, therefore, write emails and letters asking that our officials protect us. We must ask that the specific promises to residents of a safe, peaceful, and pollution-free environment not be broken. Thank you very much.